Are you ready for a bedtime story? I might even tuck you in.
Hi, Grim here, with more scary stories to tell in the dark.
For you to calm down, that's schizophrenia. What you got if you're trying to figure out who
I'm not fucking crazy.
Okay.
The haunted house. The haunted house. One time, a preacher went to see if he could put a haunt to rest at a house in his settlement. The house had been haunted for about 10 years. Several people had tried to stay there at night, but they always would get scared out by the haunt. So the preacher took his Bible and went to the house, went on in, built himself a good fire, and lit a lamp, almost like this one, except not. He sat there reading the Bible. Then, just before midnight, he heard something start up in the cellar, walking back and forth, back and forth. Then it sounded like somebody was trying to scream and got choked off. That actually sounds pretty fun. Then there was a lot of thrashing around and struggling. And finally, everything got quiet. The old preacher took up his Bible again, but before he could start reading, he heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. He sat watching the door to the cellar, and the footsteps kept coming closer and closer. He saw the doorknob turn, and when the door began to open, he jumped up and hollered, "What do you want?" The door shut back easy-like, and there wasn't a sound. The preacher was trembling a little, but he finally opened the Bible and read a while. That's not going to save you. Then he got up and laid the book on the chair and went to mending the fire. Then the haunt started walking again. Step, step, step. Up the cellar stairs. The old preacher sat watching the door, saw the doorknob turn, and the door open. It looked like a young woman. He backed up and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do. Swayed like this. Then she just faded out. The old preacher waited and waited, and when he didn't hear any more noises, he went over and shut the door. He was sweating and trembling all over, but he was a brave man. Yeah, right. And he thought he'd be able to see through. So he turned his chair to where he could watch, and he sat down and waited. It wasn't long before he heard the haunt start up again. Slowly, step, step, step. Closer and closer. Step, step. It was right at the door. The preacher stood up and held the Bible out before him. Then the knob slowly turned, and the door opened wide. This time the preacher spoke quiet-like. He said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Who are you, and what do you want?" He was really scared. The haunt came right across the room, straight to him, and took hold of his coat. It was a young woman, about 20 years old. Her hair was torn and tangled, and the flesh was dropping off her face, so he could see the bones and part of her teeth. She had no eyeballs, but there was a sort of blue light wave back in her eye sockets, and she had no nose on her face. This is what she looked like. Very beautiful. Such a lovely creature. Then she started talking. It sounded like her voice was coming and going with the wind blowing it. She told how her lover had killed her for her money and buried her in the cellar. She said if the preacher would dig up her bones and bury her properly, she could rest. Then she told him to take the end joint of the little finger from her left hand and to lay it in the collection plate at the next church meeting. Oh, what a lovely gift. And he'd find out who had murdered her. And she said, if you come back here once more after that, you'll hear my voice at midnight, and I'll tell you where my money is hid, and you can give it to the church. I wonder if he does. The aunt sobbed like she was tired, and she sunk down toward the floor and was gone. The preacher found her bones and buried them in the graveyard. The next Sunday, the preacher put the finger bone in the collection plate, and when a certain man happened to touch it, it stuck to his hand. The man jumped up and rubbed and scraped and tore at the bone, trying to get it off. Then he went to screaming like he was going crazy. Maybe he was. Well, he confessed to the murder, and they took him to jail. I wonder why he killed her exactly. Was it just for the money? Was she not going to share? I wouldn't either. After the man was hung, he was hung, the preacher went back to the house one midnight, and the haunt's voice told him to dig under the hearth rock. The hearth rock? Hearth rock. He did, and he found a big sack of money. And where the haunt had held onto his coat, the print of those bony fingers were burned right into the cloth. It never did come out. That was a good one. How exciting. What the fuck did I just watch? Excuse me while I go rinse my eyes out. Last one for the night. I would love to just read forever. The White Wolf. See that? Oh, beautiful. Oh my god, I can't get over this artwork. Hey, the timber wolves around French Creek had gotten out of hand. There were so many wolves the farmer could not stop them from killing their cattle and sheep. So they put a bounty on them. It would pay $110 for every wolf pelt he turned in. Oh. They could just relocate them. A butcher in town named Bill Williams thought that it was pretty good money, He stopped working as a butcher and started killing wolves. He was good at it. Every year he killed over 500 of them. Oh, not the wolves. That came to more than $5,000. It was quite a bit of money in those days. After 4 or 5 years, Bill had killed so many wolves, there were hardly any left in that area, so he retired and he vowed never to harm another wolf because wolves had made him rich. Good for Bill. Don't want me to find you. Then one day a farmer reported that a white wolf had killed 2 of his sheep. He had shot it and hit it, but the bullets didn't have any effect. Soon that wolf was seen all over the countryside, killing and running, but no one could stop it. One night, it came into Bill's yard and killed his pet cow. Oh, poor cow. I happen to love cows. Bill forgot about his decision never to harm another wolf. He went into town the next morning and bought a young lamb for bait. He took it out into the hills and tied it to a tree. Oh, I like being tied to trees. Then he backed off about 50 yards and sat down under another tree. With his gun in his lap, he waited. When Bill didn't come back, his friends started looking for him. Finally, they found the lamb. It was still tied to a tree. It was hungry. But it was alive. Then they found Bill. He was still sitting against the other tree, but he was dead. His throat had been torn open. But there was no sign of a struggle. His gun hadn't been fired, and there were no tracks in the soil around him. As for the white wolf, it would never... It was never seen again. I'm glad he was killed. He killed too many wolves to survive. I think that wolf got revenge. That was probably what he was after. Bye. Stick around. I'm not through with you yet. I want more. Do you? Stick around and ask me questions. And I know you have questions. I see you in your emails. Yeah, you.